When Michael Bennett witnesses his trusted manager publicly humiliate and fire a dedicated employee at one of his flagship restaurants, the consequences will change everything. Michael Bennett stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of his penthouse office at Culinary Ventures International, watching the golden morning light dance across the Chicago skyline. The wall behind his desk showcased the journey of his restaurant empire, from a single family-style bistro 15 years ago to the current portfolio of 35 successful establishments across the Midwest. Each framed magazine cover and industry award represented a milestone in his mission to create restaurants that felt like home, where both customers and employees were treated like family. But today, the usual comfort of these achievements felt hollow. Michael's fingers traced the edge of a troubling report spread across his modernist glass desk. The quarterly performance review of the Copper Kettle, his first and most beloved restaurant, showed a disturbing trend. Customer satisfaction scores had plummeted by 30% in the last 6 months. Online reviews, once glowing with praise, now told stories of cold service, inconsistent food quality, and an atmosphere that felt more corporate than caring. "This can't be right," Michael murmured, running a hand through his salt and pepper hair as he scrutinized the numbers again. The Copper Kettle had always been special, a warm, inviting space where regulars were greeted by name and staff stayed for years, not months. He had hand-picked Marcus Reynolds to manage it 3 years ago, impressed by his impressive resume and charismatic leadership style. His quarterly reports had been consistently positive, highlighting improved efficiency and cost management. Yet something wasn't adding up. Beyond the declining reviews, staff turnover had increased dramatically. Several long-term employees had left without explanation, their departure forms citing vague reasons like personal circumstances or career change. The disconnect between Marcus's glowing reports and these troubling indicators gnawed at Michael's intuition. "Mr. Bennett?" His assistant Rachel appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. "The board meeting is in 10 minutes. They're waiting to discuss the expansion plans." Michael nodded, but his mind was elsewhere. The expansion could wait. After building this company from scratch, he had learned to trust his instincts. Something was wrong at the Copper Kettle, and he needed to find out what. "Rachel, cancel my meetings for the next 2 weeks," Michael said, standing up. "And get me everything you can find about our current situation at the Copper Kettle. Staff records, customer feedback, anything from the last 6 months." Rachel's eyebrows shot up. "The board won't be happy about postponing the expansion discussion." "Sometimes you have to look backward to move forward," Michael replied, walking to the window. The morning sun caught the Copper Kettle pin on his lapel, a reminder of where he started. The Copper Kettle isn't just another restaurant in our portfolio. It's our foundation. If something's wrong there, I need to know why. As Rachel left to make the arrangements, Michael pulled up the restaurant's security feed on his laptop. The cameras showed the usual morning bustle. Servers setting tables, kitchen staff prepping for lunch service, Marcus striding through the dining room with his characteristic confidence. Everything looked normal on the surface, but Michael had built his success on seeing beyond the obvious. He thought back to the early days when he worked every position in that restaurant, from dishwasher to host to cook. The connections he'd forged with his team, the pride they took in creating not just meals, but memories for their guests. Had success and expansion caused him to lose touch with that fundamental vision? "Rachel," Michael called out, "one more thing. I need you to create a new employee profile in the system, someone with basic restaurant experience, but nothing too impressive. And find me an apartment near the Copper Kettle, something modest, something that fits the profile of a person starting over in the industry." "Oh, you're going undercover?" Rachel asked, realization dawning on her face. Michael nodded, his determination growing. Sometimes the only way to find the truth is to see it for yourself. No one at the Copper Kettle can know who I really am. As far as they're concerned, I'll just be another new hire trying to make it in the restaurant business. As he began to outline his plan, Michael felt a mix of anticipation and resolve. The Copper Kettle had been his dream, his stepping stone to success. If something was threatening that legacy, he would face it head-on, not from the comfortable distance of his corporate office. Whatever was happening within those familiar walls, he would uncover the truth, not as CEO Michael Bennett, but as a simple employee looking for a fresh start. Michael spent the next morning meticulously reviewing every piece of data about the Copper Kettle. His spacious office had transformed into a war room of sorts, with reports, employee records, and customer reviews spread across every surface. Each document revealed another piece of a troubling puzzle. "Look at this trend," he said to Rachel, pointing to a graph on his tablet. The line showing employee satisfaction had been steadily declining for months, creating a sharp downward curve that mirrored the drop in customer reviews. But Marcus's reports painted a completely different picture, highlighting record profits and improved operational efficiency. "Something's not right here," Michael muttered, pulling up the staff roster. Names he recognized, veteran employees who had been with him since the early days, were conspicuously absent. Maria Chen, the talented sous chef who had helped create their signature dishes, gone after 6 years. James Rodriguez, the charismatic head waiter whose rapport with customers had earned him countless mentions in positive reviews, departed after 8 years. A notification popped up on his screen, another negative review from the previous night. Michael clicked it open, his frown deepening as he read, "This isn't the Copper Kettle I remember." The food was rushed, the service was cold, and the warm family atmosphere that made this place special seems to have disappeared. It feels like just another corporate restaurant now. The words stung, because they struck at the heart of everything Michael had built. The Copper Kettle wasn't supposed to be just another restaurant. It was meant to be a place where every customer felt like a welcomed guest, where every employee felt like part of a family. "Rachel, pull up Marcus's performance metrics," Michael requested, reaching for his coffee. The numbers that appeared on screen were impressive: reduced food costs, increased table turnover, higher profit margins. On paper, Marcus was exceeding every traditional benchmark for restaurant management. Now show me the employee feedback surveys. The contrast was stark. While anonymous comments from 6 months ago praised the supportive work environment, recent responses told a different story. Hostile workplace, impossible expectations, favoritism. The words jumped out from multiple surveys, painting a picture of a restaurant where efficiency had come at the cost of morale. Michael opened his email, finding a message from Marcus about the latest quarterly projections. The manager's confident tone bordered on arrogant as he detailed his plans for further optimizations to improve profitability. There was no mention of the declining customer satisfaction or the growing number of negative reviews. "I've got the apartment arranged," Rachel announced, entering with a fresh stack of documents. "It's a small studio 6 blocks from the restaurant. The kind of place a new employee might rent while getting back on their feet." She paused, studying Michael's expression. "Are you sure about this? The board is already asking questions about the postponed expansion meeting." Michael stood up, walking to the window that overlooked the city. In the distance, he could just make out the familiar copper sign of his first restaurant. "The board is focused on numbers, Rachel. But restaurants aren't just about numbers. They're about people, the ones who work there and the ones who eat there. Something's wrong at the Copper Kettle, and I need to see it firsthand." He turned back to his desk, picking up a particularly concerning review from a former regular customer. "This Marcus Reynolds looks perfect on paper. The right experience, the right credentials, impressive results, But these reviews, these employee surveys, they tell a different story, a story of a restaurant losing its soul. Rachel nodded, understanding the weight of the situation. "What's your cover story gonna be?" "Keep it simple," Michael replied, already mentally preparing for his role. Michael Parker, 48, former restaurant worker from Detroit, looking for a fresh start in Chicago. Basic experience, nothing too impressive, the kind of hire that wouldn't raise any red flags. He picked up a photo from his desk, a snapshot from the Copper Kettle's opening day. In it, a younger Michael stood surrounded by his original team, all of them grinning with the excitement of beginning something special. This restaurant was built on more than just good food and efficient service. It was built on relationships, on treating people right. If Marcus is sacrificing that for short-term profits, I need to know. The rest of the afternoon was spent preparing his cover. Rachel helped him select appropriate clothing, casual but presentable, nothing that would hint at his true status. They created a basic resume that would qualify him for an entry-level position without drawing too much attention. As the sun began to set over Chicago, Michael took one last look around his office. The trappings of success surrounded him. Awards, accolades, evidence of an empire built from a single dream. But success meant nothing if it came at the cost of the values that had built that dream in the first place. "Tomorrow morning, Michael Bennett takes a break," he said, slipping the copper kettle pin from his lapel and placing it carefully in his desk drawer. "And Michael Parker starts looking for work at a neighborhood restaurant." The plan was set. Now it was time to discover the truth about what was happening at the Copper Kettle, not as its owner, but as one of its newest employees. On a brisk Monday morning, Michael Parker, no longer the polished CEO, but a man in well-worn jeans and a simple button-down shirt, walked through the bustling streets of Chicago's North Side. The familiar copper sign of the Copper Kettle gleamed in the morning sun, but for the first time in 15 years, he approached it as an outsider. The restaurant wouldn't open for another hour, but already he could see activity through the windows. Kitchen staff moved purposefully through their morning prep routines, while servers arranged tables with practiced efficiency. Michael felt a twinge of pride seeing the well-oiled machine he had built, but it was tempered by anxiety about what he might discover. Taking a deep breath, he pushed open the heavy wooden door. The hostess station was empty, but he could hear voices from the kitchen, including one that carried an edge of irritation. "No, no, no!" Marcus Reynolds' voice boomed from behind the swinging doors. "These vegetables are cut too thick. Do it again, and do it right this time. We're not running a soup kitchen here." Michael winced at the harsh tone, so different from the professional demeanor Marcus displayed in their corporate meetings. A young server hurried past him, her eyes downcast, clutching a stack of menus so tightly her knuckles were white. "Can I help you?" A hostess appeared, her smile seeming forced as she glanced nervously toward the kitchen. "Yes, I saw the help wanted sign in the window," Michael replied, gesturing to the small, now hiring placard he'd had Rachel place there the day before. "I'm looking for work, restaurant experience, willing to start anywhere." The hostess, her name tag read Jenny, nodded and disappeared through the swinging doors. Moments later, Marcus emerged, his commanding presence filling the entrance area. Michael had to resist the urge to straighten his posture, reminding himself that he was no longer the CEO but a job seeker. "Experience?" Marcus asked curtly, barely glancing at the resume Michael handed him. 15 years in restaurants, mostly in Detroit," Michael replied, the cover story flowing naturally. "Had to relocate for family reasons, looking to start fresh." Marcus skimmed the resume, his expression dismissive. "We need someone on prep and dishes. Pay is minimum wage plus tips split. Hours are long, work is hard. Think you can handle that?" "Yes, sir," Michael answered, noting how Marcus seemed to preen at the respectful address. "I'm not afraid of hard work." "Fine. Kitchen's short-staffed and we need bodies. Start now. We'll do paperwork later." Marcus turned on his heel, clearly expecting Michael to follow. The kitchen was a flurry of activity, but something felt off. The usual banter and camaraderie that characterized busy restaurant kitchens was absent, replaced by tense silence, broken only by the sound of chopping and the hiss of stovetops. "David, show the new guy the prep station." Marcus barked at a young cook who was methodically dicing onions. "And for God's sake, pick up the pace. We open in 45 minutes. David nodded without looking up, his shoulders tense. As Marcus strode away, the young man finally raised his eyes to meet Michael's. "I'm David Chen," he said quietly. "Been here 8 months. Let me show you around." As David led him through the kitchen, Michael observed everything with keen interest. The equipment was top of the line. He had personally selected most of it, but it showed signs of neglect. The special herb garden he'd installed along the kitchen windows, once a source of fresh ingredients and pride, looked withered and untended. "Prep stations here," David explained, indicating a worn cutting board and a stack of vegetables. "Marcus likes everything cut exactly to specification. There's a guide posted on the wall. One mistake and—" He trailed off, glancing toward the office where Marcus had disappeared. "One mistake and what?" Michael prompted gently. David shook his head. "Just be careful. Marcus has been on edge lately. We lost 3 prep cooks last month alone." As Michael began working, he noticed other troubling signs. The walk-in cooler, usually meticulously organized, was chaotic. Several containers of expensive ingredients sat dangerously close to their expiration dates. The recipe books he'd helped develop, meant to ensure consistency across shifts, were nowhere to be seen. "Where are the standard recipe guides?" He asked David, keeping his tone casual. "Marcus says we don't need them," David replied, lowering his voice. "Says they slow us down. But honestly, I think he's modified most of the recipes to cut costs. The regulars have noticed. They keep asking why things taste different." Throughout the morning, Michael watched Marcus's management style in action. The manager moved through the kitchen like a storm cloud, finding fault with everything: the temperature of the soup, the arrangement of the garnishes, the speed of service. Each criticism was delivered with a cutting edge that left the staff looking increasingly demoralized. "Pick up the pace," Marcus snapped at a server who was carefully plating a dish. "We're not running a fine dining establishment here. Get it out, get them fed, get them out. That's how we make money." Michael felt his jaw tighten. The copper kettle had never been about rushing customers through their meals. It was about creating an experience, making memories. But under Marcus's leadership, it seemed the focus had shifted entirely to turnover and profit margins. As the lunch rush approached, Michael could feel the anxiety in the kitchen rising. The staff moved with a frantic energy, born not of enthusiasm, but fear. Fear of making mistakes, fear of drawing Marcus's attention, fear of becoming the next target of his temper. This wasn't the restaurant he had built. This wasn't the culture he had created, and he had a feeling that what he'd seen this morning was just the tip of the iceberg. The lunch rush hit the copper kettle like a tidal wave, and Michael found himself fully immersed in the chaos. From his position at the prep station, he had a perfect vantage point to observe how the restaurant functioned under pressure. What he saw made his heart sink. "Table 12's been waiting 20 minutes for their appetizers," Marcus shouted across the kitchen, his face reddening. "What's the hold-up?" "We're short on the prepped calamari," Lisa, one of the line cooks, responded tensely. "The delivery this morning was less than half of what we ordered." Marcus's response was immediate and harsh. "That's not my problem. Figure it out. And someone tell those servers to stop giving away so much bread. That stuff isn't free, you know." Michael watched as Jenny, the hostess, tried to placate an elderly couple who had been regular customers for years. He couldn't hear their conversation, but their expressions of disappointment were clear as they gathered their coats and left without ordering. Another small piece of the copper kettle's legacy walking out the door. "Hey, new guy!" Marcus's voice cut through his observations. "Those vegetables aren't going to prep themselves. I'm not paying you to daydream." Michael returned to his cutting board but kept his ears open. Around him the staff moved with mechanical efficiency, but their faces told a different story. Gone were the smiles, the quick jokes, the supportive gestures that had once made this kitchen feel like a family. During a brief lull, David sidled up to Michael's prep station, speaking in hushed tones. "Watch out for the afternoon inventory." "Oh, check," he warned. "Marcus has been riding everyone hard about waste, but something's not adding up. We're constantly running out of ingredients, even though the orders show we should have plenty." Michael nodded, filing away this information. "How long has this been going on?" "Got worse about 6 months ago," David replied, quickly returning to his station as Marcus emerged from the office. "Just keep your head down and don't ask too many questions." As the afternoon wore on, Michael noticed a pattern. Marcus spent an unusual amount of time on his phone, stepping into the back alley for what he called supplier discussions. After one such call, Michael managed to position himself near the back door, pretending to take out trash while Marcus spoke to someone in a white delivery van. "Yeah, same arrangement as last week," Marcus was saying, his voice low but clear. "Just make sure the paperwork looks clean. Corporate never checks the details anyway." The revelation made Michael's blood boil, but he maintained his composure. This wasn't just about poor management anymore. There was something more sinister at play. Later, during the pre-dinner prep, Michael witnessed another troubling incident. Sarah, a young server who had been with the restaurant for just 2 months, approached Marcus with a concern. "Mr. Reynolds," she began hesitantly, "some of the customers are complaining about the portion sizes. They're saying they're much smaller than before, but we're charging the same prices." Marcus's response was cutting. "Are you questioning my management decisions? The portions are what I say they are. If customers complain, tell them that's how we've always done it, unless you'd rather look for another job." Sarah retreated, blinking back tears. Michael watched as Lisa, the line cook, gave her a sympathetic pat on the shoulder. "Don't take it personally," he overheard Lisa whisper. "He's like that with everyone now." By the end of his first full day, Michael had filled his mental notebook with disturbing observations. The once pristine kitchen now cut corners on cleaning. The cheerful banter that had once filled the space was replaced by tense silence. And most troubling of all, there were signs that Marcus was involved in something that went beyond mere poor management. As Michael hung up his apron, he noticed a small group of staff members huddled near the locker area, speaking in whispers. He lingered, pretending to gather his things while listening. "Another week like this and I'm out," one of the line cooks was saying. "This isn't what I signed up for." "Remember how it used to be?" Lisa responded. "When we actually felt proud to work here? Now it's just about pushing people through as fast as possible and cutting every corner we can find." "I heard corporate has no idea," Jenny added. "Marcus makes everything look good on paper, but you know those reports are about as real as his customer service smile." The conversation scattered as Marcus's footsteps approached. Michael watched as the staff quickly dispersed, their faces masks of forced neutrality. The fear was palpable, and it was clear that the copper kettle had transformed from a place of pride into a pressure cooker of anxiety and resentment. Walking home that evening, Michael felt the weight of everything he'd witnessed. His beloved restaurant, the foundation of his success, had become unrecognizable under Marcus's leadership. But tomorrow was another day, another chance to dig deeper. and uncover the full extent of what was happening behind those kitchen doors. One thing was certain: this investigation was no longer just about declining reviews and customer complaints. There was something more sinister at work, and Michael was determined to expose it, no matter the cost. The next few days at the Copper Kettle revealed a pattern of behavior that grew more troubling with each shift. Michael arrived early one morning, hoping to observe the delivery process that David had mentioned. Hidden behind stacked boxes in the storage area, he watched as Marcus intercepted the morning delivery before any other staff arrived. "Just put half of that order in the van," Marcus instructed the delivery driver in hushed tones. "Make sure the invoice shows the full amount, same as always." The driver nodded, clearly familiar with this routine, as he diverted premium cuts of meat and high-end ingredients into a waiting vehicle. Michael's hands clenched as he watched the scene unfold. This wasn't just mismanagement, it was outright theft. He pulled out his phone, discreetly recording the exchange while staying hidden behind the storage shelves. Later that morning, a new crisis erupted in the kitchen. Lisa, the line cook, stared in dismay at the limited supplies available for the day's service. "This can't be right," she muttered, checking the inventory list. "We ordered enough salmon for the whole weekend. There's barely enough here for lunch service." Marcus appeared behind her, his presence casting an immediate chill over the kitchen. "Then you better make it stretch," he snapped, "and don't even think about telling customers we're running low. Reduce the portions if you have to." "But sir," Lisa protested, "the portions are already smaller than what's listed on the menu. People are complaining." "Did I ask for your opinion?" Marcus cut her off, his voice dangerously low. "Just do your job, or I'll find someone who will." Michael noticed David watching the exchange, his expression troubled. When Marcus stormed off to his office, Michael approached the young cook. "Does this happen often?" he asked quietly. David glanced around before responding. "All the time. Orders never match what we actually receive, but the invoices always show full deliveries. And if anyone questions it..." He shrugged helplessly. "Well, you saw what happens." The lunch rush brought new revelations. Michael observed as Marcus handled customer complaints with a combination of gaslighting and intimidation. When an elderly couple questioned why their favorite dish tasted different, Marcus smoothly assured them nothing had changed, despite having personally instructed the kitchen to use cheaper ingredients. "The recipe is exactly the same," Marcus insisted, his smile not reaching his eyes. "Perhaps your tastes have changed. We have many other options on the menu, if you'd prefer something else." The couple left disappointed, adding to the growing list of long-time customers who might never return. Michael made a mental note of their names, recognizing them as regulars who had been coming to the Copper Kettle since its opening days. Between prep tasks, Michael managed to glimpse inside Marcus's office when the manager left the door ajar. The computer screen displayed what appeared to be two separate sets of books, one showing the official numbers reported to corporate, another tracking something else entirely. Before he could look closer, Marcus returned, and Michael quickly busied himself with his prep work. "Hey, new guy," Marcus called out later that afternoon. "Take these invoices to the office and file them, and make it quick. I don't pay you to dawdle." This was the opportunity Michael had been waiting for. Inside the office, he quickly photographed the suspicious documents with his phone, noting the discrepancies between ordered supplies and actual deliveries. The evidence was mounting, pointing to a systematic scheme of theft and fraud. A commotion from the kitchen interrupted his documentation. Sarah, the young server, was facing Marcus's wrath over a simple mistake with a drink order. "I'm sorry," she stammered. "The customer changed their mind after I put in the order." "Sorry doesn't pay the bills," Marcus shouted, his face reddening. "Every mistake costs this restaurant money. Maybe a few days off without pay will help you learn to be more careful." Michael watched as Sarah's colleagues avoided eye contact, their fear of becoming the next target evident in their rigid postures and downcast eyes. The bright, enthusiastic young woman who had started just months ago now looked defeated, her spirit crushed by Marcus's toxic leadership. That evening, as the staff cleaned up after service, Michael overheard a conversation between Lisa and Jenny near the locker room. "I can't keep doing this," Lisa whispered. "The way he treats people, the corners we're cutting with food quality, it goes against everything I was taught in culinary school." "I know," Jenny replied, "but what can we do? Nobody from corporate ever visits, and Marcus has friends in regional management. He makes sure all the reports look perfect." The conversation confirmed what Michael had suspected. Marcus had created a carefully crafted facade, hiding his corruption behind manipulated numbers and intimidated silence. The once proud staff of the Copper Kettle had been reduced to fearful observers of their own restaurant's decline. As Michael left that night, he reviewed the evidence he'd gathered: photos of suspicious deliveries, documentation of altered invoices, recordings of Marcus's threatening behavior, and testimonies from frightened staff members. The picture it painted was clear. The Copper Kettle wasn't just suffering from poor management, it was being systematically dismantled from within by someone he had trusted to preserve its legacy. Tomorrow would bring new opportunities to gather evidence, but Michael knew time was running out. Each day under Marcus's leadership pushed the restaurant further from its founding principles and drove away more loyal customers and dedicated staff. The question wasn't just about exposing Marcus anymore, it was about saving the heart and soul of the Copper Kettle before it was too late. The catalyst that would change everything came during a busy Friday evening service. Michael had been at the Copper Kettle for just over a week now, methodically documenting Marcus's misdeeds while maintaining his cover as the unassuming new prep cook. The restaurant was packed, with a line of customers stretching out the door, a sight that should have been cause for celebration, but instead filled the staff with dread. Emma, a soft-spoken server who'd been with the restaurant for just 3 months, approached the kitchen window with trembling hands. She carried a plate of the house specialty, herb-crusted salmon that had been returned by a customer. "The guest says it's undercooked," Emma explained quietly to Lisa at the line, "and they mentioned it doesn't look like the portion size they got last time." Before Lisa could respond, Marcus materialized behind Emma, his presence causing an immediate hush in the kitchen. "What's the problem here?" he demanded, his voice carrying that dangerous edge that the staff had come to fear. "Table 14 says their salmon is undercooked, sir," Emma replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "They're regular customers and—" "Regular customers?" Marcus interrupted, snatching the plate. "You mean the kind that expects special treatment and costs us money?" He examined the salmon with exaggerated scrutiny. "This is cooked perfectly. They just want a free meal." Michael watched from his prep station as Emma gathered her courage. "Sir, I really think if we just offered to—" "To what?" Marcus cut her off. "Give them a free dinner, comp their meal. Do you want to pay for it out of your salary?" His voice rose with each question, drawing uncomfortable attention from nearby tables. "These people come in here, complain about everything, trying to scam us out of money, and you want to reward them?" Emma's eyes welled with tears. "They've been coming here for years. Mrs. Davidson even brought me soup when I was sick last month." "I don't care if they've been coming here since the Stone Age," Marcus exploded. "You don't question my decisions. Take this back to them and tell them it's cooked perfectly. If they don't like it, they can leave." And the young server stood frozen, tears now flowing freely down her cheeks. I can't do that to them. It's not right." The kitchen fell deadly silent. Even the usual clatter of pots and pans ceased as everyone held their breath, watching. The scene unfold. Marcus's face turned a dangerous shade of red. "You can't do that! You can't do that!" His voice boomed through the kitchen. Well, let me tell you what you can do. You can clean out your locker and get out. You're fired! Emma stared at him in shock. But I need this job. My mom's medical bills. Not my problem, Marcus sneered. Should have thought about that before you decided to undermine my authority. Get out. Now. Michael felt his blood boiling as he watched Emma stumble away, sobbing. The other staff members looked on helplessly, their faces reflecting a mixture of sympathy and relief that they weren't the target of Marcus's wrath. What are you all standing around for? Marcus barked at the remaining staff. This is a restaurant, not a theatre. Get back to work. The kitchen erupted into frantic activity, but Michael noticed Lisa discreetly wiping tears from her eyes as she returned to the line. David's hands shook as he chopped vegetables, and Jenny, at the host stand, looked physically ill. Making a quick decision, Michael slipped out the back door, finding Emma collapsed on a crate in the alley, her whole body shaking with sobs. "Emma," he said gently, "what Mrs. Davidson said about the salmon, was she right?" Through her tears, Emma nodded. The portions are half what they used to be, and the fish was practically raw in the middle, but we're not allowed to question anything anymore. Marcus says we have to serve it however he tells us to, even if we know it's wrong. Michael placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "How long has this been going on?" "It gets worse every week," she whispered. "The food quality, the portions, the way he treats us. This used to be such a wonderful place to work. Now it's a nightmare. And I really needed this job." Inside, Michael could hear Marcus loudly instructing the staff to spread Emma's sections among themselves, making thinly veiled threats about what would happen if anyone else decided to play hero. This was the final straw. Michael had seen enough. The theft, the manipulation, the mistreatment of staff, and now the cruel firing of a dedicated employee over a legitimate concern. It was time to end this. As Emma gathered her belongings, Michael made a quick call, stepping further into the alley to ensure privacy. "Rachel, yes, it's me. Get everything ready. Tomorrow morning we end this. And call HR. I want Emma rehired immediately with back pay and an apology. Make it happen." Returning to the kitchen, Michael watched as Marcus strutted around, clearly pleased with himself for asserting his authority. The manager had no idea that his reign of terror was about to come to an end, or that the quiet prep cook he'd just watched comfort Emma was actually the owner of not just this restaurant, but the entire chain. Tomorrow would bring justice, but for now, Michael had one more evening of evidence to gather. The staff of the Copper Kettle had endured enough abuse, and he was determined that Emma would be the last employee to leave these doors in tears. Saturday morning arrived with a tension in the air that even the regular staff could sense. Michael arrived early, noting how Marcus was already in his office, likely preparing for another day of intimidation and corner-cutting. The morning light filtered through the windows, illuminating the dining room where Emma's section now sat empty, a stark reminder of yesterday's injustice. "Morning," David mumbled as Michael entered the kitchen, his shoulders already hunched, in anticipation of another stressful day. "Better watch out. Marcus is on the warpath after yesterday. Already made Jenny cry over the reservation book." Michael nodded, tying his apron with deliberate calm. He knew it would be the last time. He'd wear it. Rachel had confirmed everything was in place. The corporate team was en route, and all the evidence was properly documented and ready. At precisely 9 a.m., just before the restaurant opened for brunch service, the front door chimed. Marcus emerged from his office straightening his tie, only to freeze at the sight of 3 individuals in business attire. Michael recognized Rachel among them, carrying a leather portfolio. "We're closed," Marcus announced, his usual authoritative tone carrying a hint of uncertainty. "We don't open until—" "Marcus Reynolds?" Rachel interrupted, her professional demeanor unwavering. We're here from corporate for an immediate audit and review. The color drained from Marcus's face. Audit? There must be some mistake. I wasn't notified of any. That's rather the point, a stern-looking man beside Rachel interjected. Based on some concerning reports, we're conducting an unannounced investigation into the operations of this location. Marcus's eyes darted around the restaurant, landing briefly on Michael at his prep station before returning to the corporate team. Everything here is in perfect order, he insisted, recovering some of his swagger. All my reports are up to date, and including the reports about your secondary supply operation. Michael's voice cut through the tension as he stepped forward, removing his apron. The kitchen staff watched in confusion as their quiet new colleague approached the group with an air of unmistakable authority. Marcus's face contorted in confusion. What are you talking about? Get back to your station before you what, Marcus? Michael asked, his voice sharp. Before you fire me like you fired Emma yesterday? Or perhaps before you divert more of our inventory to your side business? Understanding slowly dawned on Marcus's face, followed by a wave of panic. Who are you? Michael Bennett, he replied, watching Marcus's face turn ashen. Owner and CEO of Culinary Ventures International, including the Copper Kettle, though you might know me better as your new prep cook from the past week. The kitchen erupted in gasps and whispers. Lisa dropped a pan she was holding, the clatter echoing through the suddenly silent restaurant. Jenny covered her mouth in shock, while David stared open-mouthed at the man he'd been teaching to properly dice vegetables. Mr. Bennett, I can explain, Marcus stammered, his confident demeanor crumbling. Everything I did was for the good of the restaurant. The cost-cutting measures, the inventory management. You mean the theft? Michael interrupted. The falsified invoices? The systematic intimidation of our staff? The destruction of everything this restaurant stands for? Michael turned to Rachel, who handed him the portfolio. We have documented evidence of your scheme, Marcus. The diverted deliveries, the double books, the unauthorized side business you've been supplying with our inventory. But worse than that, we have evidence of how you've treated our people. He gestured to the staff gathered around them. These dedicated employees built the Copper Kettle's reputation for excellence. They're the heart of this restaurant. And you've spent months breaking their spirit, crushing their dedication, all while lining your own pockets. Marcus's face shifted from panic to desperation. You can't prove anything. I have friends in regional management. My numbers are perfect. Your numbers are fabricated. Michael cut him off. And your friends in regional management are being investigated as well. Did you really think we wouldn't notice? That the declining reviews, the staff turnover, the customer complaints wouldn't eventually reach my desk? Sir, David stepped forward, finding his courage. Everything he's saying about Marcus is true. We've all seen it. The missing inventory, the altered portions, the way he treats everyone. Others began to speak up, years of pent-up frustration finally finding release. Lisa described the declining food quality. Jenny detailed the hostile work environment. One by one, the staff painted a picture of systematic abuse and corruption. Marcus's face had turned from ashen to red, his fists clenched at his sides. You orchestrated this? Spied on me? Came in here under false pretenses? I came here to understand why my flagship restaurant was failing, Michael replied calmly. What I discovered was far worse than I imagined. You're not just a poor manager, Marcus. You're a thief and a bully who's been destroying everything. The Copper Kettle stands for. Turning to the corporate team, Michael nodded. Please escort Mr. Reynolds to the office to collect his personal belongings. Security will supervise, and the authorities have already been notified about the theft and fraud. As two security officers appeared at the door, Marcus made one last desperate attempt. You can't do this to me. I made this place profitable. I increased efficiency. You forgot what this restaurant is about, Michael interrupted. It was never just about profits. It was about creating a place where both customers and employees felt like family. And you destroyed that. The staff watched in stunned silence as Marcus was escorted out, his protests fading as the security team led him away. Michael turned to address the remaining employees, his voice softening. "I owe all of you an apology," he began. "I should have seen what was happening here sooner, but starting today, we're going to rebuild the copper kettle together. And our first order of business is calling Emma to tell her she's not only rehired, but promoted." The tension in the room finally broke, replaced by relieved smiles and even a few tears of joy. The long nightmare under Marcus's reign was over, and the copper kettle could begin its journey back to what it was always meant to be, a restaurant built on respect, quality, and genuine care for both its staff and customers. In the hours following Marcus's departure, the copper kettle buzzed with a new kind of energy. Michael gathered the entire staff in the dining room, the morning sun streaming through the windows as they sat together for the first time in months, without fear or tension. "First," Michael began, standing before his team, "I want to acknowledge the courage it took for all of you to endure what happened here. Each of you could have left, found other jobs, but you stayed, trying to preserve what made this place special." Lisa raised her hand tentatively, old habits dying hard. "Mr. Bennett, we had no idea you were the owner. All this time working beside you at prep?" Michael smiled warmly. "Please call me Michael. And yes, that was the point. I needed to see firsthand what was happening here, but what I witnessed was beyond anything I expected." Rachel, who had been making calls since Marcus's exit, approached with an update. "Emma's on her way in," she reported, "and we've already begun contacting former employees who left under Marcus's management." "Good," Michael nodded. "They all deserve the opportunity to return if they wish, but right now let's focus on immediate changes." He turned to David, who still looked somewhat shell-shocked by the morning's events. "David, you mentioned Marcus had modified many of our original recipes." "Yes, Michael," David corrected himself. "He kept pushing us to use cheaper ingredients, smaller portions. The quality really suffered." "Then our first priority is returning to our original standards," Michael declared. "I want every recipe restored to its proper specifications. Lisa, you've been here longest among the kitchen staff. I'm promoting you to head chef. I trust you remember how things should be done?" Lisa's eyes widened with surprise and joy. "Absolutely. I still have copies of the original recipes at home. I couldn't bring myself to throw them away." "Perfect. Jenny," he turned to the hostess, who stood straighter at being addressed, "you'll be our new front-of-house manager. Your connection with our regular customers will be vital in rebuilding those relationships." The door chimed, and Emma entered hesitantly, her eyes red from crying but holding herself with dignity. The staff immediately surrounded her with hugs and words of welcome. "Emma!" Michael called, waiting for the commotion to settle. "I believe you were right about that salmon yesterday. Would you like to help us ensure that never happens again as our new quality control supervisor?" Emma's face lit up with disbelief and happiness. "Really? But I was just a server." "You were the only one brave enough to stand up. For our standards, even at the cost of your job," Michael replied. "That's exactly the kind of integrity we need in leadership." As the morning progressed, Michael worked with the team to implement immediate changes. The smaller portion sizes were immediately restored to their original specifications. The cheap substitute ingredients Marcus had been using were marked for disposal, and Rachel began placing orders for the high-quality supplies that had once been the copper kettle's hallmark. "We're also instituting a new open-door policy," Michael announced. "Any concerns, suggestions, or issues can be brought directly to management without fear of retaliation." This restaurant was built on collaboration and respect, and that's what we're returning to. David, who had been quietly processing the morning's events, spoke up. What about the customers we've lost? The regulars who stopped coming because of how things changed? We're going to win them back, Michael assured him, not with gimmicks or excuses, but by returning to what made the Copper Kettle special in the first place. Exceptional food, genuine hospitality, and a staff that takes pride in their work. As the team prepared for the day's service, there was a palpable shift in the atmosphere. Gone was the suffocating tension that had characterized Marcus's reign. Instead, there was a sense of purpose, of renewal. One more thing, Michael addressed the staff before they opened. I want you all to know that while I'm returning to my regular duties as CEO, this experience has taught me the importance of staying connected to what happens in our restaurants. I'll be making regular visits, not as an undercover boss, but as someone who wants to ensure we never lose sight of our values again. The first customers of the day were greeted by smiling staff members who moved with newfound confidence. The kitchen hummed with positive energy as Lisa led her team in, preparing dishes the way they were meant to be made. Emma, in her new role, carefully monitored every plate that left the kitchen, ensuring each met the high standards the Copper Kettle was known for. By the end of that first day, the change was already evident. Customer comments moved from surprised appreciation to outright joy as they recognized the return of their favorite dishes, prepared with the care and quality they remembered. As Michael watched his team work together, supporting and encouraging each other, he knew that the Copper Kettle hadn't just survived a crisis, it had emerged stronger. The restaurant would once again be a place where both customers and staff felt like family, where quality and integrity mattered more than cutting corners for profit. The corrupt manager was gone, but more importantly, the heart and soul of the Copper Kettle had been restored. And this time, Michael was determined to ensure it stayed that way. A month after Marcus's departure, the Copper Kettle was transformed. The morning sun streamed through freshly cleaned windows, illuminating a dining room that buzzed with renewed energy. Michael sat at a corner table, reviewing the latest customer feedback while sipping coffee from one of the restaurant's signature copper mugs. Mr. Bennett. Sorry, Michael, Emma corrected herself, approaching with a stack of comment cards. You need to see these. The responses to our welcome back dinner were incredible. The special event, held the previous evening, had been Emma's idea, inviting long-time customers who had stopped coming during Marcus's tenure for a complimentary meal to showcase the restaurant's return to form. The gesture had filled the dining room with familiar faces, many of whom had been dining at the Copper Kettle since its opening. The Davidsons wrote a beautiful note, Emma continued, her eyes bright with pride. They say it's like having their favorite restaurant back from the dead. And Mrs. Chen, you remember, the one who used to bring her grandchildren every Sunday? She cried when she tasted Lisa's restored version of the braised short ribs. Michael smiled, remembering the previous night's success. The kitchen had operated with precision and joy under Lisa's leadership, sending out plates that looked and tasted exactly as they should. The dining room, managed expertly by Jenny, had hummed with warm conversation and genuine laughter, sounds that had been absent for far too long. How are the new hires settling in? Michael asked, noting several fresh faces among the staff. Wonderfully, Emma replied. David's training program is brilliant. He has this way of teaching the recipes that helps everyone understand not just the how but the why behind each dish. And the returning staff members who left under Marcus, they've brought back so much of the original spirit. Indeed, several employees who had quit during Marcus's regime had returned, bringing with them years of experience and a deep understanding of what made the Copper Kettle special. Their presence helped bridge the gap between the restaurant's past and its future. Lisa emerged from the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron. "Michael, you've got to see this," she called excitedly. "The herb garden is finally back to its full glory. Look at these basil leaves. They're perfect for the new summer menu we've been planning." The kitchen itself had undergone a remarkable transformation. Gone were the shortcuts and substitute ingredients. The walk-in cooler was once again meticulously organized, stocked with premium supplies. The recipe books were back in their proper place, though they were rarely needed now that the staff had reconnected with the restaurant's culinary heritage. "Chef!" a young line cook called out to Lisa. "The first batch of fresh pasta is ready for your inspection." Lisa's promotion to head chef had proven to be inspired. She had quickly rebuilt the kitchen's confidence, implementing systems that balanced efficiency with quality. Under her guidance, the kitchen staff worked together, like a well-rehearsed orchestra, each member understanding their role in creating the perfect dining experience. "We've had 3 inquiries this week about booking private events," Jenny reported, joining the conversation. "Word is spreading that the Copper Kettle is back to its old standards. The Richardson family wants to host their 50th anniversary dinner. Here, they said no other restaurant would do." Michael stood, walking through the restaurant he had built from scratch. Every corner held memories, and now those memories were being honored rather than erased. The copper accents gleamed, the tables were perfectly set, and the aroma of fresh-baked bread filled the air. "There's something else you should see," Rachel said, appearing with a tablet in hand. She pulled up the restaurant's latest reviews. "We're trending on social media. People are sharing their return to the Copper Kettle stories. The response has been overwhelming. The online reviews told a story of redemption. Like coming home again," one customer wrote. "The warmth, the quality, the attention to detail, everything that made this place special is back and better than ever." David, passing by with a tray of freshly prepared vegetables, paused. "You know what the best part is? We're actually having fun again. Yesterday, I heard laughter in the kitchen for the first time in months. Real laughter. Not the nervous kind we used to have under Marcus." Michael nodded, understanding exactly what David meant. The fear that had permeated every corner of the restaurant had been replaced by joy. Joy in creating exceptional food, joy in providing genuine hospitality, joy in being part of something special. "We're not just serving meals," Emma observed, thoughtfully. "We're back to creating experiences, making memories. Yesterday, I watched a couple get engaged at table 15, the same table where they had their first date 3 years ago. That's what the Copper Kettle is supposed to be about." As the staff prepared for another day of service, Michael felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The crisis had taught him valuable lessons about staying connected to his restaurants, about the importance of protecting the culture he had built. But it had also revealed the resilience of his team, their dedication to preserving what made the Copper Kettle special. The restaurant wasn't just surviving, it was thriving, renewed by the very values that had made it successful in the first place. The copper sign outside gleamed in the morning sun, a beacon of welcome to old friends and new customers alike, promising not just a meal, but an experience worth remembering. 6 months after Marcus's departure, Michael stood at the entrance of the Copper Kettle, watching as guests arrived for a special anniversary celebration. The restaurant had been transformed back into the warm, inviting space he had originally envisioned, but now it carried something extra, a hard-won wisdom about the importance of protecting what matters most. "Everything's ready," Emma announced, adjusting the elegant place settings one final time. She had blossomed in her role as quality control supervisor, her attention to detail, ensuring that every dish that left the kitchen met the restaurant's exacting standards. "The Hendersons just called to confirm they're bringing their entire family, 4 generations who've been dining here since opening day. The occasion was more than just an anniversary celebration. It was a testament to the restaurant's successful revival and a thank you to the loyal customers and staff who had helped restore its soul. The dining room glowed with soft lighting. Fresh flowers adorned every table, and the copper accents that gave the restaurant its name gleamed warmly. "Lisa's outdone herself with the menu," David reported, emerging from the kitchen with obvious pride. He had recently been promoted to sous chef, his dedication during the difficult times rewarded with greater responsibility. "She's recreated some of the original opening night dishes, but with these amazing seasonal touches." In the kitchen, Lisa moved with confident authority, guiding her team through final preparations. Under her leadership, the kitchen had regained its reputation for excellence, with young cooks now applying from across the country for the chance to train under her. "Remember when we could barely get through a shift without someone crying?" Jenny mused, organizing the reservation list at her podium. "Now look at us. 3 consecutive months of perfect customer satisfaction scores, and we just got nominated for the city's Restaurant of the Year award." Michael smiled, remembering the dark days under Marcus's management. The transformation hadn't been easy, but the results were undeniable. The copper kettle wasn't just back to its former glory, it had evolved into something even better. "Mr. Bennett," a familiar voice called. Michael turned to see Mrs. Davidson, one of their longest-standing customers, entering with her family. "Or should I still call you the new prep cook?" she added with a twinkle in her eye. "Michael, please," he laughed, welcoming her warmly. "And I think my prep cook days are behind me, though I learned more in that week than I had in years." "Well, whatever you learned brought back the restaurant we all loved," she replied. "I told my granddaughter about how you went undercover to save this place. She said it sounds like something from a movie." As more guests arrived, the dining room filled with the happy buzz of conversation and laughter. Regular customers mingled with staff members, sharing stories about their history. With the restaurant, the barrier between employees and guests had dissolved into something more familial, exactly as Michael had always intended. Rachel appeared at Michael's side, tablet in hand. "You'll want to see this," she said, pulling up a news article. "The story about Marcus just broke. He's pleaded guilty to all charges. The prosecutor specifically mentioned how your undercover investigation provided crucial evidence." Michael nodded solemnly. The legal proceedings against Marcus had been necessary, but they weren't what he wanted to focus on tonight. This evening was about celebrating the restaurant's renewal and the people who made it possible. "Everyone, if I could have your attention," Michael called out, stepping to the center of the dining room. The crowd quieted, turning to listen. 6 months ago, the copper kettle was at a crossroads. Years of mismanagement had nearly destroyed everything we had built together. But thanks to the courage of our staff and the loyalty of our customers, we didn't just survive, we rediscovered what made this place special in the first place. He gestured to his team, Emma, Lisa, David, Jenny, and all the others who had weathered the storm. These incredible people reminded me that a restaurant isn't just about food or profit. It's about creating a place where memories are made, where relationships are built, where everyone feels like family. The evening progressed like a perfect symphony. Lisa's kitchen produced dish after magnificent dish, each one a celebration of the copper kettle's culinary heritage. The service team moved through the dining room with graceful efficiency, led by Jenny's impeccable attention to detail. Emma ensured every plate met her exacting standards before leaving the kitchen. As Michael watched the scene unfold, he felt a deep sense of satisfaction. The crisis had taught him valuable lessons about staying connected to his restaurants, about the importance of hands-on leadership. But more than that, it had shown him The incredible resilience of people who believe in something bigger than themselves. The Copper Kettle wasn't just a restaurant anymore. It had become a symbol of revival, of the power of staying true to one's values, even in the face of adversity. The copper sign outside still gleamed as brightly as ever, but now it stood for something even more meaningful, a reminder that sometimes you have to fight to protect what matters most. As the evening drew to a close, Michael raised a toast. To his team and their guests, to the Copper Kettle, he said, and to all of you who helped bring its heart and soul back to life. Here's to many more years of creating memories together. The glasses clinked, the sound ringing through the warm, bustling dining room like a symphony of triumph and renewal. 1 year after the transformation of the Copper Kettle, its impact extended far beyond its own walls. Michael sat in a conference room at Culinary Ventures International headquarters, surrounded by managers from his other restaurants. The quarterly meeting had taken on a new significance since the events at the Copper Kettle, becoming less about numbers and more about preserving the culture that made each location special. The results speak for themselves, Rachel presented, gesturing to the screens behind her. Since implementing what we now call the Copper Kettle Protocol across all locations, employee satisfaction is up 70%. Customer loyalty has increased, and our retention rate for staff is at an all-time high. The protocol, born from the lessons learned during Michael's undercover experience, emphasized regular quality checks, open communication between management and staff, and a return to the foundational values that had built the company. But it's more than just numbers, Michael added, standing to address the group. Each of our restaurants has its own unique character, its own community. Our job isn't just to maintain standards, it's to protect and nurture those individual identities. Linda Martinez, the newly appointed regional director who had replaced one of Marcus's former allies, raised her hand. The mentorship program has been particularly successful. Having experienced staff members from the Copper Kettle rotate through other locations to share their expertise has really helped spread the cultural changes. Indeed, Lisa had become something of a traveling ambassador, spending time in various restaurant kitchens to share her philosophy of leadership and quality. Emma's quality control systems had been adopted company-wide, creating a new standard for excellence that balanced efficiency with uncompromising attention to detail. "I've got something else to share," Rachel interjected, pulling up a new slide. "Remember those cooking classes Jenny started at the Copper Kettle? They've become so popular that we're looking at implementing similar community engagement programs at all locations." The classes had started as a simple way to reconnect with customers, with Jenny and Lisa teaching traditional recipes from the Copper Kettle's menu. They had evolved into beloved community events, bringing together food enthusiasts, regular customers, and aspiring chefs in the restaurant's warm, welcoming space. "David's apprenticeship initiative is ready to launch as well," Michael announced. "Starting next month, each location will take on 2 culinary students for a 6-month intensive training program. We're partnering with local cooking schools to provide real-world experience while ensuring our techniques and values are passed on to the next generation." The meeting continued with updates from various locations, each manager sharing stories of how the changes had affected their restaurants. The fear-based management style that had characterized Marcus's era had been replaced by a culture of mentorship and growth. After the meeting, Michael returned to the Copper Kettle for the evening service. The restaurant had maintained its renewed vigor, but now it served another purpose, as a training ground for managers and staff from across the company who came to learn its secrets of success. "Chef Williams, from our Detroit location, is shadowing me this week," Lisa reported as Michael toured the kitchen. He's particularly interested in how we maintain quality while running such an efficient kitchen. I told him it's all about trust and communication, the opposite of everything Marcus stood for. The evening service demonstrated exactly what Lisa meant. The kitchen moved with practiced precision, but there was an easy camaraderie among the staff. Servers consulted freely with the kitchen about special requests, and everyone took pride in ensuring each dish met Emma's exacting standards. "You know what's really remarkable?" Jenny observed during a quiet moment. "We're not just creating great dining experiences anymore. We're actually changing people's lives. 3 of our regular customers have opened their own restaurants in the past year, saying we inspired them to follow their dreams." Michael nodded, understanding exactly what she meant. The Copper Kettle had become more than just a successful restaurant. It was a beacon of what was possible when people worked together with shared values and purpose. "The food critics are calling it the Copper Kettle effect," Rachel mentioned, showing Michael a recent review. "They say we've sparked a revolution in restaurant culture, proving that success and humanity aren't mutually exclusive." As the evening progressed, Michael watched his team in action. Every interaction, every plate that left the kitchen, every smile exchanged between staff and customers reflected the lessons learned during that crucial undercover investigation. The crisis that had nearly destroyed the Copper Kettle had ultimately led to something greater, a new model for restaurant management that prioritized people alongside profit. "Mr. Bennett," a young server approached, carrying a letter. "A customer asked me to give you this." The note was from a former employee who had worked under Marcus. She wrote about finding her love for the restaurant industry again after hearing about the Copper Kettle's transformation and how she had just been accepted into culinary school. "This," Michael thought, carefully folding the letter, "this is the real measure of our success." The copper sign outside still gleamed in the evening light, but now it stood for something even more meaningful, a symbol of how one restaurant's revival had sparked a movement toward more human, more sustainable ways of running restaurants. The Copper Kettle hadn't just saved itself, it had become a catalyst for positive change throughout the industry. 2 years into the Copper Kettle's transformation, the challenge of rebuilding customer trust was bearing fruit in unexpected ways. On a quiet Tuesday afternoon, Michael watched as an elderly couple hesitantly approached the restaurant's entrance. He recognized them immediately. The Thompsons, who had been weekly regulars for a decade before Marcus's mismanagement drove them away. "I wasn't sure we should try again," Mrs. Thompson confided to Jenny at the host stand. "But our granddaughter insisted. She said the old Copper Kettle was back, better than ever." Jenny's warm welcome reflected the renewed spirit of the restaurant. "Let me show you to your old table, by the window, where you can watch the sunset. We've kept it open at this time, hoping you might return." Michael observed as the couple settled in, their initial uncertainty giving way to cautious optimism. As they noticed familiar touches, the properly set table, the warm bread service, the attentive but unobtrusive staff presence that had once been their reason for visiting twice a week. "Do you remember me, Mrs. Thompson?" Emma approached their table, carrying a specially prepared appetizer. "I used to help my mom clean your house during high school. You always saved me a slice of your famous apple pie." The recognition and personal connection brought tears to Mrs. Thompson's eyes. This was what the Copper Kettle had always been about. Not just serving meals, but nurturing relationships that extended beyond the restaurant's walls. In the kitchen, Lisa had prepared their old favorite dishes exactly as they remembered them. "The Thompsons' return is a big deal," she explained to her staff. "They were here on opening night 15 years ago. Their approval means everything." Woody. Throughout the evening, Michael noticed other signs of rebuilt trust. A local business group had resumed holding their monthly meetings in the private dining room. A young couple celebrated their engagement at the same table where they'd had their first date years ago, before Marcus's era had driven them away. "We're seeing more and more of this," Rachel reported, showing Michael the latest customer feedback data. "People who left during Marcus's time are coming back, and they're bringing their friends and family. The trust isn't just rebuilt, it's expanding." David, now confidently running the lunch service, shared another observation. "It's not just about the food anymore. People trust us with their special moments again. Last week, a customer asked us to help plan his marriage proposal. That wouldn't have happened 2 years ago." The restaurant's revival had rippled through the community. Local suppliers, who had stopped working with the copper kettle during Marcus's fraudulent schemes, had cautiously returned. Now they proudly advertised their association with the restaurant, knowing their products would be treated with respect and showcased properly. "Remember when Marcus was cutting corners with cheap substitutes?" Emma mused, inspecting the day's deliveries. "Now our suppliers compete for the chance to work with us. They know their reputation is safe in our hands." As the evening progressed, Michael noticed Mr. Thompson making his way to the kitchen. The elderly gentleman had tears in his eyes as he addressed the staff. "For years, this place was our second home. Losing it, well, it felt like losing family. But now, it feels like coming home again." The impact of his words resonated through the kitchen. Lisa paused her preparation to shake his hand. David beamed with pride. The newer staff members, who had only heard stories about the restaurant's golden age, finally understood what they were working to preserve. Later that night, after service had ended, Michael gathered his team for their nightly meeting. "Trust," he began, "is like a delicate recipe. It requires the right ingredients, careful attention, and most importantly, time. What we lost under Marcus can't be rebuilt overnight, but moments like tonight show we're on the right path." Jenny shared an update from her guest book, a record of returning customers she had started keeping. "The Thompsons aren't alone. This month, we've welcomed back 23 former regular customers. Each one brings their own story, their own history with the copper kettle. And they're all saying the same thing," Emma added. "It's not just that we're as good as we used to be. They think we're better. Because now we understand what we almost lost." The team dispersed for the night, each member carrying a renewed sense of purpose. The copper kettle wasn't just serving meals, it was rebuilding a community's trust, one table at a time. Each returned customer, each restored relationship, each rekindled tradition added another layer to the restaurant's renewed foundation. As Michael locked up for the night, he noticed a note the Thompsons had left with their bill. "Thank you for bringing back our special place," it read. "We hadn't realized how much we missed it until tonight." The copper sign gleamed in the street light, its warm glow a beacon of welcome to old friends finding their way back home. The trust that Marcus had nearly destroyed was being rebuilt, stronger and deeper than before, based not just on good food and service, but on genuine connections and shared memories. 2.5 years after Marcus's departure, the most remarkable changes at the Copper Kettle weren't found in the renovated dining room or the updated menu, but in the personal growth of its staff. Michael spent an afternoon observing the transformations that had taken place in the people who had weathered the storm with him. In the kitchen, David had evolved from the timid line cook who once flinched at Marcus's voice into a confident culinary instructor. Today, he was leading a masterclass for aspiring chefs, his voice carrying clearly over the sounds of chopping and sizzling. "Technique is important," David explained to his students, demonstrating a complex plating arrangement, "but understanding why we do things a certain way matters more. Every dish tells a story, and we're the storytellers." Michael remembered how David used to hide behind his prep station, afraid to speak up even when he saw things going wrong. Now he moved through the kitchen with assured grace, mentoring newer staff members and contributing innovative ideas to menu development. "You know what really changed?" David confided during a quiet moment. "It wasn't just getting rid of Marcus. It was realizing that our voices matter, that our ideas can make this place better. That's what you showed us when you went undercover." Emma's transformation was equally remarkable. The server who had been fired for standing up to Marcus had become the restaurant's moral compass, her commitment to quality and fairness influencing every aspect of operations. "We had a situation last week," Emma reported to Michael. "A supplier tried to deliver lower-grade produce than what we ordered. Before, we might have accepted it to avoid conflict. But I remembered how standing up for standards cost me my job under Marcus, and how that turned out to be the right thing to do. So I refused the delivery and called their management." The supplier had apologized and rushed the correct order, along with a discount for the inconvenience. Word had spread through the industry that the Copper Kettle's standards were non-negotiable but fair. Lisa, who had quietly maintained her culinary integrity during Marcus's reign, had blossomed into an inspiring leader. Her kitchen ran with precision and passion, but without the fear that had once permeated every corner. "Yesterday, one of our new cooks made a mistake with a sauce," Lisa shared. "Under Marcus, that would have meant public humiliation. Instead, we turned it into a teaching moment. The whole line learned from it, and that cook, he stayed after his shift to practice until he got it perfect. Even Jenny, who had once been too afraid to meet Marcus's eye, had found her voice. As front-of-house manager, she had developed a hosting style that made every guest feel like part of the Copper Kettle family. I used to think my job was just seating people and managing reservations," Jenny reflected. "Now I understand I'm the first chapter in our guests' experience. Every greeting, every interaction sets the tone for their entire visit." The transformation extended to the newer staff members as well. Carlos, a busboy hired after Marcus's departure, had recently been promoted to server after showing exceptional attention to detail and customer care. "I heard stories about how it used to be here," Carlos said during his break, "how everyone was afraid to make mistakes, afraid to suggest improvements. Now, in our daily meetings, even the newest staff members feel comfortable sharing ideas. Last month, they implemented my suggestion for improving the table clearing process." Michael watched as his team moved through their duties with confidence and pride. The fear that had once haunted their eyes had been replaced by something more valuable, a sense of ownership and belonging. "Remember Angela?" Rachel asked, referring to a former server who had quit during Marcus's tenure. "She came back to visit yesterday, said she hardly recognized the place, not because of any physical changes, but because of how different everyone seems. They're standing taller," she said. "The evening service demonstrated just how far the staff had come. When a large party arrived without a reservation, Jenny smoothly reorganized the dining room to accommodate them. The kitchen adapted their prep schedule without missing a beat, and the servers worked together seamlessly to ensure every table received proper attention." "That would have been a disaster 2 years ago," Emma observed. "Now it's just another opportunity to show what we can do." As the night wound down, Michael gathered his team for their usual closing meeting. Looking at their faces, tired but satisfied, confident but humble, he saw the true success of the Copper Kettle's revival. "Each of you," he began, "has grown far beyond what any job title could describe. You've become leaders, mentors, innovators. You've proven that when people are given trust and respect, they can achieve extraordinary things." The copper sign outside still gleamed, but now it symbolized more than just a successful restaurant. It represented a place where people could grow, where mistakes were learning opportunities, and where every member of the team contributed to the larger story of what a restaurant could be. The transformation of the Copper Kettle wasn't just about restoring a restaurant. It was about restoring faith in what people could achieve when freed from fear and given the chance to flourish. 3 years after the transformation began, the Copper Kettle had developed a new operational framework that set industry standards. Michael spent a week documenting the systems that had organically evolved from the ashes of Marcus's mismanagement, preparing to share these insights with his other restaurants. "It's amazing to see how everything flows now," Rachel remarked, observing the seamless coordination between kitchen and dining room during a busy Saturday service. "Every process has a purpose, but there's still room for human connection." The morning began with what the staff called the sunrise meeting, a practice that had replaced Marcus's intimidating pre-shift lectures. In the warm morning light, before the day's preparations began, the entire team gathered to share updates, address concerns, and celebrate successes. "Quality check on the deliveries," Emma announced, consulting her tablet. "Peterson Farms sent exceptional produce today. Their heirloom tomatoes are perfect for the new summer menu." The fishmonger adjusted their delivery schedule to ensure we get first pick of the morning catch. Lisa followed with the kitchen update. "We're testing a new inventory system that tracks ingredients from delivery to plate. It prevents waste while ensuring we never compromise on quality. David's suggestion about prep timing has reduced our kitchen stress significantly during rush hours." The new inventory system was a direct response to Marcus's fraudulent schemes. Every ingredient was tracked through a transparent process that multiple team members could verify. Gone were the days of mysterious shortages and questionable deliveries. "The real innovation," Michael explained to a visiting restaurant consultant, "is how we've balanced efficiency with humanity. Every system we've implemented considers both operational needs and human impact." The kitchen demonstrated this balance perfectly. Lisa had developed a rotation system that ensured every cook gained experience at different stations while maintaining consistent quality. Cross-training became standard practice, creating a more versatile and understanding team. "When everyone knows every role," David explained while training a new line cook, "we develop respect for each position. No one says, 'That's not my job anymore,' because we understand how each task contributes to the whole." Jenny had revolutionized the front-of-house operations with a reservation system that did more than just track tables. It maintained detailed guest preferences, celebrated special occasions, and ensured that returning customers felt remembered and valued. "Yesterday, we had a guest mention that they loved our house-made focaccia during their last visit 6 months ago," Jenny shared. "Thanks to our new system, we had fresh focaccia waiting at their table when they arrived. The look on their face was priceless." The beverage program underwent similar refinement. The wine cellar, once a source of Marcus's theft, now operated under a dual verification system that prevented abuse while making inventory management more efficient. "We've actually expanded our wine selection," the new sommelier explained. "Because we can track everything accurately, we're confident in stocking premium bottles. Our wine pairing dinners have become monthly events that sell out weeks in advance." Even the cleaning protocols reflected the new operational philosophy. The staff no longer rushed through end-of-shift cleaning as they had under Marcus. Instead, they developed a systematic approach that made the task more manageable while ensuring nothing was overlooked. "Clean as you go, respect the space," became a kitchen mantra. The results were visible in the gleaming surfaces and organized storage areas that had replaced the chaos of the previous era. Technology played a crucial role in the overhaul, but never at the expense of personal connection. New ordering tablets helped servers input orders more accurately, while still maintaining eye contact and engagement with guests. "The technology supports us. It doesn't replace us," Emma emphasized during a staff training session. "We use these Tools to enhance the human experience, not substitute for it. The back office, once Marcus's domain of deception, had been transformed into a model of transparency. Financial records, inventory reports, and staff schedules were readily available for review. Weekly meetings invited input from all team members on operations and improvements. This level of openness, Rachel noted, prevents another Marcus situation from developing. When everyone has access to information, no one can manipulate the system. As the evening service demonstrated, these operational changes had created a restaurant that ran with remarkable efficiency while maintaining its soul. Servers moved smoothly between tables, the kitchen produced consistent excellence without chaos, and every guest felt personally attended to. "It's like watching a dance," Michael observed as the restaurant hummed with activity. "Every person knows their role, but they're also aware of how they fit into the larger performance." The copper sign outside still caught the evening light, but now it represented more than just a restaurant. It symbolized a new way of operating in the industry, proving that efficiency and humanity could coexist, that systems could support rather than suppress the human element that made dining special. The operational overhaul of the copper kettle hadn't just improved its functioning, it had created a blueprint for how restaurants could run successfully while staying true to their values. Each process, each system, each protocol served both the business and the people who made it work. The transformation of the copper kettle hadn't gone unnoticed in the culinary world. On a crisp autumn morning, Michael arrived at the restaurant to find a film crew setting up in the dining room. The prestigious Restaurant Revolution series had requested to document the copper kettle's remarkable turnaround. "They want to understand how we did it," Rachel explained, organizing press materials. "Not just the business recovery, but the cultural transformation. 3 major industry publications have also requested interviews this week." The restaurant had become a case study in successful rehabilitation. Culinary schools sent their students to observe the kitchen operations, while business programs analyzed the leadership principles that had guided the transformation. "It's surreal," Lisa admitted, preparing for her interview segment. "Last year's Chef of the Year award was unexpected enough, but now they're calling us pioneers. We were just trying to save our restaurant." The film crew captured the morning preparations, amazed by the natural choreography of the kitchen team. David led his section with quiet confidence, demonstrating the teaching techniques that had earned the copper kettle recognition as a premier training ground for aspiring chefs. "What impresses us most," the documentary director commented, "is how you've maintained excellence while creating a positive work environment. That's rare in this industry." Emma, now regularly invited to speak at hospitality conferences, shared her perspective with the crew. The real innovation wasn't in any specific policy or procedure. It was in proving that a restaurant can succeed by prioritizing both quality and human dignity. The cameras followed Jenny as she prepared the dining room, documenting the attention to detail that had earned the copper kettle the coveted Superior Service Award 3 months earlier. Her hosting protocols had become a model for restaurants nationwide. "We've had managers from other establishments shadow our operations," Jenny explained to the interviewer. "They always expect some secret formula, but it's really about creating an environment where every person, staff and guest alike, feels valued." Between filming segments, Michael reflected on the industry recognition with his team. The wall of awards had grown impressively, but more meaningful were the letters from other restaurant owners seeking guidance on transforming their own establishments. "Remember when that celebrity chef visited last month?" David reminded them. "He said he'd never seen a kitchen with such positive energy. Now he's implementing our training program in his restaurants." And the film crew captured a powerful moment during lunch service when a health inspector arrived for a surprise visit. Unlike the panic such visits had caused during Marcus's era, the team welcomed the inspection with confidence. Perfect scores. Across all categories, Rachel announced later, adding another certificate to the wall. The inspector said we've set a new standard for kitchen operations and safety protocols. Local business schools had begun sending their management students to study the Copper Kettle's practices. The restaurant's transparent operations and employee development programs challenged traditional industry assumptions about profit margins and staff turnover. "We're proving it's possible," Michael explained to a group of visiting MBA students. "You can maintain high standards and treat people well while still running a profitable business." The two aren't mutually exclusive. The afternoon brought a visit from the editorial team of Restaurant Industry Quarterly. They were particularly interested in how the Copper Kettle had maintained its momentum after the initial turnaround. "Many restaurants can achieve short-term improvements," the editor observed, "but sustaining excellence while continuing to innovate, that's extraordinary." Lisa's Kitchen had become renowned for its apprenticeship program, now considered one of the most prestigious culinary training opportunities in the region. The waiting list for positions grew longer each month. "We're not just teaching cooking techniques," Lisa explained to the camera. "We're showing the next generation what's possible when you combine skill with integrity." As evening service approached, the film crew captured the daily staff meeting. The natural interaction between team members, the open exchange of ideas, and the genuine camaraderie demonstrated why the Copper Kettle had become a model for restaurant culture. "The industry is changing," Michael reflected during his final interview. "Restaurants are realizing that success isn't just about the food or the profit margins. It's about creating sustainable environments where both cuisine and people can flourish." The day concluded with an unexpected honor, news that the Copper Kettle had been selected for the prestigious Restaurant of the Year award, specifically citing its influence on industry practices and workplace culture. "This isn't just our achievement," Michael told his assembled team after the cameras stopped rolling. "This recognition belongs to everyone who believed in what the Copper Kettle could become, even during our darkest days." The copper sign outside gleamed particularly bright that evening, a beacon not just for guests seeking an exceptional dining experience, but for an industry discovering that excellence and humanity could go hand in hand. The Copper Kettle had become more than a successful restaurant. It had become a symbol of positive change in an industry ready for transformation. The bustling morning at the Copper Kettle took on special significance as Michael welcomed the first official class of the restaurant's comprehensive employee growth program. The initiative, born from the lessons learned during the crisis, had evolved into something far more ambitious than a simple training scheme. "Today marks a new chapter," Michael addressed the gathered group of 20 aspiring restaurant professionals. "What you'll learn here goes beyond cooking techniques or service protocols. You'll discover what makes a restaurant truly exceptional." The program had attracted applicants from across the country, each drawn by the Copper Kettle's reputation for excellence and innovation. Among them were experienced chefs seeking to refine their leadership skills, service professionals wanting to understand the restaurant's acclaimed hospitality model, and newcomers to the industry hoping to start their careers on the right path. "Each of you will rotate through every position," Lisa explained, standing before the group in her chef's whites. "From dishwashing to management, you'll experience firsthand how each role contributes to our success. This isn't about hierarchy. It's about understanding and respect." The program's first day demonstrated this philosophy in action. David led a session on kitchen fundamentals, but rather than simply demonstrating techniques, he explained the reasoning behind each process. "Notice how our prep station is organized," he instructed, showing the systematic arrangement of ingredients. "This isn't just about efficiency, it's about creating an environment where everyone can succeed. Under our previous manager, chaos was the norm. We learned the hard way why. That doesn't work. Emma's portion of the training focused on quality control, but her lessons extended beyond mere inspection procedures. Your role, regardless of your position, is to be a guardian of standards, she emphasized. When I stood up to Marcus about food quality, I wasn't just protecting our reputation, I was honoring our commitment to our guests. Jenny's front-of-house training session revealed the subtle art of genuine hospitality. We're not just serving food, she explained. We're creating experiences, building relationships, making memories. Every interaction matters. The program's innovative approach caught the attention of culinary educators. A representative from a prestigious cooking school observed the training, taking notes on the copper kettle's methodology. "What you're doing here is revolutionary," the educator commented to Michael. "You're not just training employees, you're developing complete restaurant professionals who understand both the practical and philosophical aspects of this industry." Throughout the day, Michael watched as his team shared not just their expertise, but their experiences. They spoke openly about the dark days under Marcus, using those memories to illustrate the importance of integrity and leadership. Understanding what can go wrong in a restaurant is as important as knowing what can go right, Lisa told her group during a kitchen demonstration. Each of us learned valuable lessons during that time, lessons we're now passing on to you. The afternoon session focused on the restaurant's unique approach to problem-solving. Rachel presented real scenarios from the copper kettle's history, challenging the trainees to think critically about solutions. "In this industry, you'll face countless decisions every day," she explained. "Your technical skills matter, but your values matter more. We learned that the hard way when Marcus chose profit over principles." The program's emphasis on mental health and work-life balance marked a departure from traditional restaurant culture. A dedicated portion of the training addressed stress management, communication skills, and the importance of maintaining a healthy workplace environment. "The old model of running restaurants through fear and pressure is dying," Michael told the group. "We're showing there's a better way, one that values both excellence and well-being." As evening approached, the trainees participated in their first service, each shadowing an experienced staff member. The energy in the kitchen was electric, but controlled, a far cry from the chaos that had once reigned under Marcus's management. "Watch how everyone communicates," David instructed his shadowing trainee. "Clear, respectful, focused. This doesn't happen by accident. It's the result of building the right culture." The day concluded with a group discussion where trainees shared their initial impressions and asked questions. Their enthusiasm validated the copper kettle's approach to professional development. "I've worked in other restaurants," one trainee commented, "but I've never seen anything like this. It's not just about the food or service, it's about building something meaningful." Michael ended the session with a reflection on the program's ultimate goal. "We're not just training you for jobs," he explained. "We're preparing you to be leaders who will shape the future of this industry. Each of you has the potential to create positive change, just as we did here at the Copper Kettle." As the trainees departed, Michael watched them go with a sense of pride and purpose. The employee growth program represented more than just professional development. It was a vehicle for spreading the Copper Kettle's values throughout the industry, ensuring that the lessons learned from Marcus's mismanagement would help prevent similar situations in other restaurants. The copper sign caught the evening light, its warm glow symbolizing not just the restaurant's success, but its commitment to nurturing the next generation of restaurant professionals who would carry its legacy of excellence and integrity forward. The morning newspaper's headline caught Michael's attention as he arrived at the Copper Kettle. "Former restaurant manager pleads guilty in major fraud case." The story of Marcus Reynolds had finally reached its legal conclusion, bringing closure to a chapter that had nearly destroyed the restaurant. The prosecutor called it one of the most comprehensive cases of restaurant fraud they'd seen, Rachel reported, showing Michael the detailed article. Your documentation during the undercover investigation proved crucial to the conviction. The staff gathered in the dining room before opening, many of them holding copies of the paper. For them, this wasn't just news, it was vindication of everything they had endured and overcome. 3 to 5 years, Lisa read aloud from the article, plus full restitution to the restaurant and banned from managing any food service establishment for 10 years after release. She looked up at her colleagues. It doesn't feel real. The legal proceedings had revealed the full extent of Marcus's schemes. Beyond the theft and mismanagement they had discovered, investigators uncovered a network of fraudulent suppliers and kickback arrangements that stretched across several restaurants. The evidence you gathered was just the tip of the iceberg, the lead investigator had told Michael during their final meeting. Once we started pulling threads, the whole operation unraveled. Other restaurants have come forward with similar stories. Emma, whose firing had been a catalyst for change, sat quietly reading the court's summary. They mentioned the hostile work environment, she noted. The judge specifically cited the pattern of intimidation and retaliation against employees. Who spoke up? David, who had testified about the kitchen's decline under Marcus's management, shared his perspective with the newer staff members who hadn't experienced those dark days. It wasn't just about the money he stole, he explained. He stole people's dignity, their passion for this work. That was the real crime. Throughout the morning, regular customers who had read the news stopped by to express their support. Many shared stories of how they had noticed the decline during Marcus's tenure, but hadn't known the cause. I remember when the portion sizes started shrinking, Mrs. Davidson told Jenny at the host stand. When the quality started slipping, we thought the restaurant was just changing with the times. We had no idea someone was deliberately destroying it. The legal proceedings had also exposed Marcus's connections within the industry. Several regional managers who had protected him were now facing their own investigations. The ripple effect was forcing other restaurant groups to examine their oversight procedures. It's changing the whole industry, Rachel observed. Restaurant groups are implementing new checks and balances, improving their reporting systems. Nobody wants to be the next copper kettle story. Michael gathered his team for a special meeting to discuss the news. Today isn't about celebrating someone's downfall, he began. It's about acknowledging that standing up for what's right, no matter how difficult matters, each of you played a part in bringing the truth to light. Jenny, who had kept detailed records of customer complaints during Marcus's time, shared her thoughts. The hardest part wasn't the fraud or the stealing. It was watching him slowly destroy everything this place stood for. The relationships with customers, the pride in our work, he nearly killed the spirit of the copper kettle. The afternoon brought a visit from the district attorney who had prosecuted the case. She wanted to thank the staff personally for their cooperation during the investigation. Your testimony was compelling, she told them, but what really impressed the court was how you rebuilt after the damage was discovered. You turned a story of corruption into one of redemption. As evening service began, Michael noticed a different energy in the restaurant. The weight of Marcus's shadow, which had lingered even after his departure, seemed to have finally lifted. The staff moved with renewed purpose, as if freed from the last vestiges of that difficult time. It feels like we can finally close that chapter, Lisa remarked during a quiet moment in the kitchen. Everything we've built since then, the training program, the quality standards, the positive culture, it all means more knowing that justice was served. The copper sign outside gleamed in the setting sun, its warm light seemingly brighter. now that the darkness of Marcus's era had been fully exposed and addressed. The Copper Kettle stood not just as a successful restaurant, but as a testament to the power of integrity and perseverance. As the evening wound down, Michael raised a toast with his team. "To justice," he began, "but more importantly to all of you who never lost faith in what this restaurant could be. Marcus's story ends with consequences for his actions, but our story, the real story of the Copper Kettle, continues with the legacy we're building together." The legal chapter was closed, but the lessons learned would never be forgotten. They had become part of the Copper Kettle's foundation, ensuring that such abuse of trust could never happen again. The impact of the Copper Kettle's transformation extended far beyond its own walls, rippling through the community in ways Michael had never anticipated. On a bright spring morning, he arrived to find the restaurant's private dining room transformed into a classroom where Lisa was teaching, a free cooking class to local high school students. "These kids remind me of myself at their age," Lisa shared during a break. "Some of them have never been in a professional kitchen before, but when they create something with their own hands, you can see their confidence grow." The community outreach program had started small, just a few cooking classes and kitchen tours, but it had grown into something much more significant. The Copper Kettle had become a hub for culinary education, career development, and community gatherings. "Last week's fundraiser for the local food bank was our most successful yet," Emma reported, reviewing the numbers. "We raised enough to provide meals for 3 months, and 6 of our regular customers volunteered to help with distribution." The restaurant's influence had sparked a revival in the neighborhood. Other businesses, inspired by the Copper Kettle's success, had adopted similar community-focused approaches. The once quiet street had transformed into a vibrant destination where local enterprises supported each other. "Remember that empty storefront next door?" Jenny asked, pointing through the window. "The young couple who opened that bakery last month were inspired by our story. They even participated in our mentorship program before launching their business." David had developed a particular connection with the local vocational school, creating an internship pathway for students interested in culinary careers. "We're not just teaching them how to cook," he explained while guiding a young intern. "Through proper knife techniques, we're showing them that this industry can be both professionally and personally rewarding." The restaurant's commitment to local sourcing had strengthened ties with area farmers and suppliers. Michael watched as a local farmer delivered fresh produce, noting how the relationship had grown from a simple business transaction into a true partnership. "When Marcus was here, it was all about cutting costs," the farmer recalled. "Now the Copper Kettle is helping small producers like me thrive. They even featured my farm's story on their menu." Rachel coordinated a monthly community table event where different local groups were invited to share meals and stories. Tonight's gathering brought together elderly residents and young professionals, bridging generational gaps through food and conversation. "It's amazing to watch," Rachel observed. "People who might never interact elsewhere find common ground here. That's what a restaurant should be, a place where community happens." The Copper Kettle's meeting rooms had become a popular venue for local organizations. Business groups, charity boards, and community planners regularly gathered there, drawn by the welcoming atmosphere and the restaurant's reputation for bringing people together. "We hosted the neighborhood council meeting yesterday," Jenny mentioned. "They're planning a street festival, and several businesses asked if we could share our community engagement strategies." The restaurant's success had inspired others to invest in the area. New shops opened, existing businesses expanded, and the neighborhood's character strengthened. The Copper Kettle had become more than a restaurant. It was a catalyst for positive change. "A reporter asked me yesterday what makes this place special," Michael shared with his team. I told her it's not just about the food or service. It's about being part of something larger than ourselves. The impact extended to local schools as well. The Copper Kettle sponsored culinary programs, provided mentorship opportunities, and hosted field trips that introduced students to the hospitality industry. Many former students had gone on to successful careers in restaurants across the city. One of my first student visitors just opened her own cafe, Lisa announced proudly. She said our kitchen tours showed her that a career in food service could be both creative and fulfilling. The restaurant's influence on local food culture was evident in the growing number of food-related events and initiatives in the area. Farmers' markets flourished, cooking clubs formed, and a new appreciation for culinary arts emerged. We're not just serving meals, Emma reflected during the evening service. We're nurturing a community's relationship with food, with each other, and with the idea of what a restaurant can be. As the day wound down, Michael observed the diverse mix of guests filling the dining room. Regular customers chatted with newcomers, sharing stories and recommendations. Staff members moved between tables with genuine warmth, knowing many guests by name. The copper sign outside had become a symbol of community pride, representing not just culinary excellence, but social responsibility and local engagement. The Copper Kettle's transformation hadn't just saved a restaurant, it had helped revitalize an entire neighborhood. This is what success really looks like, Michael told his team during their closing meeting. Not just full tables and positive reviews, but knowing we've made a difference in our community. That's something Marcus never understood. A restaurant's true value isn't measured in profits alone. The transformation of the Copper Kettle had proven that a restaurant could be both a successful business and a force for positive change in its community. Every meal served, every class taught, every connection made added to a legacy that went far beyond the dining room walls. 4 years after Michael's undercover mission, he gathered his team for an important announcement. The Copper Kettle had become more than just a restaurant. It had evolved into a model for the entire industry, and now it was time for the next step. We've received countless requests to share our methods, Michael began, addressing his assembled staff. Other restaurants want to learn from our experience. They want to understand how we rebuilt not just our business, but our entire approach to hospitality. Rachel displayed renderings on the large screen. Plans for the Copper Kettle Institute, a dedicated training facility that would occupy the building next door. The space would serve as a center for culinary education, leadership development, and industry innovation. This isn't about expansion for expansion's sake, Michael explained. It's about sharing what we've learned, about helping other restaurants avoid the pitfalls we experienced under Marcus, and about elevating the entire industry. Lisa's eyes lit up as she reviewed the kitchen design plans. The teaching kitchen is extraordinary, she noted. We'll be able to train twice as many aspiring chefs, and the technology integration will allow us to connect with students worldwide. The Institute would feature multiple specialized areas, teaching kitchens, lecture spaces, a research and development center, and a dedicated space for community programs. But most importantly, it would maintain direct connections to the Copper Kettle's daily operations. Theory and practice need to work together, David explained to the group. Students will move between the institute and the restaurant, seeing how our principles work in real-world situations. Emma had already begun developing the curriculum, drawing on her experiences during the restaurant's transformation. We're creating modules that cover everything from technical skills to ethical leadership, she shared. Every lesson is grounded in our story. What went wrong, how we fixed it, and what we learned along the way. Jenny's expertise would shape the hospitality training program. It's not enough to teach service protocols, she insisted. We need to help people understand the heart of hospitality, how to create genuine connections with guests and build lasting relationships. The plans included a research partnership with local universities, studying everything from sustainable restaurant practices to workplace culture development. The copper kettle would serve as a living laboratory, demonstrating how theoretical concepts could be successfully implemented. We're not just planning for our future, Rachel pointed out. We're creating resources that will help shape the next generation of restaurant professionals. Everything we learned from the Marcus situation, both what to do and what not to do, will inform our teaching. Michael shared his vision for the Institute's impact. Imagine if every restaurant had the tools to build a positive culture, to maintain high standards while treating people with respect, to become a genuine asset to their community. That's what we're working toward. The staff's excitement was palpable as they discussed their roles in the new venture. Many would split their time between the restaurant and the Institute, sharing their expertise while continuing to refine their skills. This is how we ensure that what happened under Marcus never happens again anywhere, David reflected. By sharing our knowledge, by teaching others to recognize the warning signs, by showing there's a better way to run a restaurant. The Institute's design incorporated lessons learned from the copper kettle's journey. Transparency would be built into every aspect, from the open kitchen layout to the clear sight lines throughout the facility. Nothing would be hidden. Everything would be a teaching opportunity. We're even creating a case study center, Rachel explained. It will document our transformation in detail, showing how problems can become opportunities for growth when handled correctly. The community aspect remained central to the plans. The Institute would offer free classes for local residents, special programs for at-risk youth, and resources for small business owners looking to start their own restaurants. Remember how lost we felt during Marcus's time? Emma asked. This Institute will be a beacon for others facing similar challenges. They won't have to figure it out alone like we did. As the evening service began, Michael watched his team with pride. Each of them had grown so much since the dark days under Marcus, and now they were ready to share their wisdom with others. The copper sign outside would soon be joined by another, the Copper Kettle Institute for Culinary Excellence and Leadership. Together, they would represent not just a successful restaurant, but a commitment to elevating the entire industry. We're not just planning for tomorrow, Michael told his team as they prepared for service. We're creating a legacy that will influence restaurants for generations to come. Every person who learns from our experience, who applies our principles in their own establishment, becomes part of our extended family. The future of the Copper Kettle was expanding beyond anything Michael had imagined when he first went undercover. It had become more than a restaurant, more than a training ground. It was becoming a movement for positive change in an industry ready for transformation. 5 years after Michael's undercover mission, the Copper Kettle had evolved into something far greater than just a successful restaurant. On a quiet Sunday morning, as Michael walked through the dining room preparing for a special celebration, he reflected on how the legacy they'd built extended far beyond their walls. "You need to see this," Rachel called, holding up the latest industry magazine. The cover story featured graduates from the Copper Kettle's training program who had gone on to transform other restaurants across the country. They're calling it the Copper Kettle Effect, a wave of positive change in restaurant culture. Lisa, now recognized as one of the country's top culinary mentors, was preparing a special menu for today's event, a reunion of sorts, bringing together everyone who had been part of the Copper Kettle's journey of transformation. "Each dish tells part of our story," she explained, directing her team with quiet confidence. "The salmon represents the day Emma stood up to Marcus. The house-made focaccia reminds us of how we rebuilt trust with our regular customers. Every plate carries meaning. David, who had recently declined offers to run other prestigious kitchens, choosing instead to continue building the Copper Kettle's legacy, worked alongside a new group of apprentices. "Teaching others what we learned," he said, "that's how we ensure this legacy continues. It's not just about cooking, it's about creating positive change." Emma had developed a comprehensive ethics program that was being adopted by restaurant groups nationwide. "When I think about that day Marcus fired me," she reflected, "I never imagined it would lead to helping other restaurants prevent similar situations. We're not just sharing recipes, we're sharing values." Jenny's hosting protocols had become industry standard, taught in hospitality schools across the country. "The real legacy," she observed, watching her trainees welcome early arrivals, "is showing that genuine care and business success aren't mutually exclusive." Marcus never understood that. The guest list for today's celebration included former employees who had gone on to make their mark in the industry. Carlos, the busboy who had started after Marcus's departure, now ran his own successful restaurant. Sarah, the server Marcus had berated, had become a respected restaurant consultant specializing in workplace culture. "Look at what everyone has achieved," Michael remarked to Rachel as they reviewed the guest list. "Each person who experienced our transformation has gone on to create positive change elsewhere. The ripple effect is extraordinary." The celebration would also honor the local community that had supported the Copper Kettle's revival. The farmers who had stuck with them, the regular customers who had returned with faith restored, the neighborhood businesses that had flourished in their wake, all were part of the legacy they'd built. "Remember when this was just about saving one restaurant?" Lisa asked, putting finishing touches on a display showcasing the Copper Kettle's journey. "Now we're helping reshape an entire industry's approach to leadership and quality." The walls of the restaurant told their story through photographs. The dark days under Marcus, the undercover investigation, the transformation, and the triumphs that followed. Each image represented a lesson learned, a principle upheld, a step toward building something meaningful. "The most powerful part of our legacy," Emma noted, "is that it's still growing. Every person who learns from our experience, who implements our values in their own establishment, becomes part of this story." As guests began to arrive, the impact of the Copper Kettle's transformation became even clearer. Industry leaders mingled with local residents. Renowned chefs chatted with culinary students. Each person carried a piece of the restaurant's legacy forward in their own way. "Your story changed how I view restaurant management," one visiting owner told Michael. "When I heard about what happened with Marcus, I completely re-evaluated how we operate. Now our staff turnover is nearly zero, and our customer satisfaction has never been higher." The celebration wasn't just about looking back, it was about continuing to build for the future. The Copper Kettle Institute was expanding its programs, developing new ways to share their knowledge and values with the next generation of restaurant professionals. "This legacy isn't static," Michael addressed the gathered crowd. "It's alive in every person who takes what they learned here and uses it to make positive changes elsewhere. It grows with every restaurant that chooses quality over shortcuts, respect over fear, community over profit." The copper sign outside gleamed in the afternoon sun, no longer just a restaurant marker, but a symbol of transformation and hope. It represented not just what the Copper Kettle had become, but what it had helped others achieve. As the celebration continued into the evening, Michael watched his extended restaurant family, past and present staff, loyal customers, community partners, all united by their connection to this place and its story. The legacy they'd built wasn't just about food or service or even success. It was about proving that one restaurant's commitment to doing things right could help transform an entire industry. This, Michael thought, watching the joyful interactions around him, this is the real measure of our success. Not awards or profits, but the lives we've touched and the positive changes we've inspired. The copper kettle's legacy would continue to grow, carried forward by every person who understood that a restaurant could be more than just a business. It could be a force for positive change in the world. 6 years to the day after Michael had first gone undercover at the Copper Kettle, he sat in the same office where the journey had begun. The view of the Chicago skyline remained unchanged, but everything else had transformed beyond recognition. "You have a visitor," Rachel announced, a knowing smile on her face, "someone who wants to share a rather interesting story." A young man entered, carrying a familiar copper kettle pin on his lapel. "Mr. Bennett," he began, "I'm James Morton. I'm here because I think there might be something wrong at one of my restaurants." Michael listened as James described a situation eerily similar to what the Copper Kettle had faced. Declining reviews, staff turnover, suspicious inventory discrepancies. But unlike 6 years ago, there was now a clear path forward. "You don't have to go undercover," Michael told him, sharing a meaningful look with Rachel. "We have a better way now. The Copper Kettle Institute can help you investigate and address these issues systematically." Later that morning, Michael walked through his flagship restaurant, now a beacon of excellence in the industry. Lisa was in the kitchen, teaching a masterclass to restaurant owners from across the country. Her lesson wasn't just about cooking techniques. It was about building and maintaining a culture of quality and respect. "Every kitchen has its challenges," she explained to her attentive audience. "The key is creating an environment where problems can be identified and addressed openly, not hidden away until they become crises." David, overseeing the lunch service preparation, worked with a new generation of chefs who had never known the fear and tension of Marcus's era. "We teach them our history," he shared with Michael, "not to dwell on the past, but to ensure they understand why our values matter." Emma, now a recognized authority on restaurant ethics and quality control, was preparing for a conference call, with restaurant groups implementing her systems nationwide. "It's amazing," she reflected, "how many situations like Marcus's we've helped prevent. Knowledge really is power." Jenny's front-of-house training program had become a model for hospitality. "Education, the real transformation," she explained to a group of management trainees, "happens when you stop seeing customers as transactions and start seeing them as part of your restaurant's story." The Copper Kettle Institute, now in its 2nd year, had already helped dozens of restaurants navigate challenges and build stronger operations. Its research center studied industry trends and developed new approaches to restaurant management, always grounded in the principles of transparency and respect. "We've come full circle," Rachel observed, showing Michael the latest data. "Remember, when we were struggling to understand what was wrong here, now we're helping others identify and solve similar problems before they become crises." The afternoon brought a special ceremony, the dedication of a new wing at the Institute, named in honor of the staff members who had stood strong during the Marcus era. The plaque read, "In recognition of those who proved that integrity and excellence are the true foundations of success." "Sometimes I wonder," David mused during the ceremony, "what would have happened if you hadn't gone undercover that day? If you had just tried to solve things from your office?" Michael watched as current and former staff members gathered for the dedication. Each person in attendance represented a chapter in the Copper Kettle's story, from the dark days of Marcus's reign to the triumph of transformation and beyond. "The undercover experience taught me something crucial," Michael responded. "Real change can't happen from a distance. You have to be willing to get in the trenches, to see things as they really, or to understand the human impact of every decision. The day concluded with a special dinner service where the Copper Kettle's extended family, staff, customers, partners and students came together to celebrate not just the past, but the future they continued to build. "We've created something remarkable," Michael addressed the gathered crowd. "Not just a successful restaurant or a training institute, but a movement that proves doing the right thing is always the right business decision." As the evening wound down, Michael stood outside, looking up at the copper sign that had witnessed it all, the same sign that had once represented his dreams, then his concerns, and now stood as a symbol of transformation and hope for an entire industry. "Full circle doesn't mean we're back where we started," he reflected to his team. "It means we've taken everything we learned along the way and used it to create something better than we originally imagined." The Copper Kettle had evolved from a restaurant in crisis to a beacon of excellence, from a cautionary tale to an inspiration. But more importantly, it had shown that one person's courage to uncover the truth, combined with a team's dedication to doing what's right, could create lasting positive change. As the lights dimmed on another successful day, the copper sign gleamed in the evening light, no longer just marking a restaurant's location, but symbolizing a legacy of transformation that would continue to influence the industry for generations to come. The undercover owner, who had once been fired from his own restaurant, had not just saved the Copper Kettle, he had helped create a new standard for what a restaurant could be, proving that success built on integrity and respect would always outlast success built on fear and deception.